Hi.
I'd like to ask a two-part question, if I could.
You can.
As a former Sinclair employee, what would be your advice for all of us liberals here in Austin that not only have a Fox station, but a Sinclair station? And the other part of my question is, would you please compare Harry Reid to Chuck Schumer?
I'll answer the second one first.
Second answer will be a fun answer, too.
So, Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer were very close friends, and they were opposites. And I interviewed Schumer for the book, and it was actually a pretty good interview. Although he took some moments during that interview to say "I told you so," saying he gave Reid advice that he didn't take, which I thought was not the most tasteful thing to do, because this was after he had passed away.
Wasn't there to defend himself. Right?
Yeah, right. But I think if I had to tell you what I really thought, I think that Reid would not be happy with the job that Schumer's doing. He would think that you have to be, especially during these times, much more confrontational and smash mouth and have a better message. And I had some indication from Reid that he wasn't happy with Schumer right before he died, and I think he would be even less happy now. So the first question was about
Sinclair
advice
and Fox
to Sinclair.
yeah.
And so can I tell my Sinclair story?
Go.
So I worked for the NBC affiliate in Nevada. My TV show was on the NBC affiliate for many years. And that Small World of Nevada was owned by a guy by the name of Jim Rogers, who was a very, very close friend of Harry Reid's. And I was not always giving Reid great coverage. And so he would regularly, I know this because Rogers told me, would call him and complain about me, and would often ask him to fire me, which Rogers never did, even though he kind of fired me for an afternoon, and I came back and talked him into letting me on the air that night. After Rogers passed away, the station was sold to Sinclair. And I told my producer on the day that happened, our days are numbered. And a few months later, we got called into the general manager's office, and the show was no longer on NBC, and that's when I went to PBS. What I found in the archive, and I suspected this, what I found in the archive is no matter how hard he had fought with his friend Jim Rogers to get me fired, as soon as the show was, the station was sold to Sinclair, they had a license, they had to get approval to get this station. Reid went to them at that very vulnerable time and essentially told them to fire me.
There's nothing that sounds familiar today, is there? Right?
Exactly.
I mean, it has real overtones of this minute.
I had sensed as much perhaps at that time, Evan, but I found the smoking gun.
It was
with
right
these
there.
emails
It was
between
right
him
there.
and his chief of staff, and the head of Sinclair, being a genius, sent an email saying, "We have taken care of that person that the senator wanted off the air." Right there in an email. Well, that is now published somewhere in here.
in this in this book. All right, what else for John Ralston? Anybody else?
Do you have a question?
Ma'am, come
Yeah,
on.
one more coming.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, hello. Good evening. My name is Viviana Novello, and I'm a student at UT Austin. I'm here with my class. We're in the Plan 2 Honors Program. I just want to firstly thank you both for being able to take the time out of your day to speak to us. And my question to both of you is, if you had to compare, if you had to compare between the topics that you guys are covering most often, let's say in Texas or in Nevada in this case, which topics do you find yourself talking about the most? And I'm curious to see if topics are different depending on the state that you're in, and how that kind of contributes to the commentary of the United States. It's like this polarizing country where people don't really know what sides to take.
Nothing polarized here. What is the one issue that is animating people right now in Nevada, do you think?
Well, we talked about this earlier, and I think because of the large Hispanic population in Nevada, and we also have one of the larger by percentage populations of undocumented workers, even though we're not a border state as Texas is, that issue is huge in Nevada right now. And while ICE is not as visible in Las Vegas as, say, it was in Minneapolis, there have been incidents, and we have a great reporter covering that, and that gets tremendous response from people, because I think it goes beyond the immigration issue. It goes to where we are as a country and what's being done about illegal immigration. And I think people think that, if you talk about Minneapolis, people should not just be shot in the street. Now, nothing like that has happened in Nevada, but people have been detained for no reason. The conditions of which they've been detained are not great. And so I think people are very, very concerned. I think it's a touchstone for people of all ideological persuasions, cuts across all demographic groups.
Yeah. I mean, I would say to the question of the differences between Nevada and Texas, here I'm going to say there's a similarity. I do think that the issue of immigration, ICE, I mean, we are the state with the most contiguous miles with the southern border of any in the country. 1.6 million undocumented people in Texas pre-Trump second term. Don't know what the numbers are a year later, but it was 1.6 million folks in this country who are in this state who are undocumented. This is very much our issue, but I will also say a slightly different answer as well. We have one of the absolutely most interesting Senate races going on right now in this state, on both sides. We haven't had a Senate race like this in Texas. Even the 2018 Senate race wasn't as interesting as this race.
Can I tell you a real funny story
Yeah.
about that? The person covering the Senate race for
The Texas
Texas Tribune left me.
We hired her away
Left
from
me.
the Nevada Independent.
Left me, and she left me because she was attracted to cover this Senate race. She's a great reporter.
Her name is Gabby Birnbaum. She is an absolutely terrific reporter.
She's tremendous. She worked for me for a while. She did a great job for me.
Yeah.
When she came to me and said that she was had been offered this job, and she was agonizing over it because she did love working at the Indian. Nevada's a fascinating state to cover. She said, "I said it's the Senate race, right?" And she said, "Yep."
It's a great Senate race. Karen.
How much of, first of all, thank you for coming today. How much of the legendary turnout political machine of Harry Reid still exists, and how does that happen, and how can we learn here in Texas on how to turn out voters
a great question.
in elections?
It is a great question. So I think reports of the demise of the Reid machine have been greatly exaggerated. However, it's not what it used to be, only because one of the things that Reid was able to do by being the leader is he unlike a lot of politicians, he loved to raise money. He loved to twist arms. You couldn't get any more money than he did to fund, because it costs a lot of money to do this kind of grassroots work, as you probably know. So it's not as well funded as it used to be. They've had to make some adjustments. But even though Lombardo won in 2022, and real quickly, because I don't want to go into the detail, he only won by 15,000 votes. My argument has been that he should have won that race by about 5 or 6 points, because the incumbent governor was suffering from what I call the COVID hangover. He had made a lot of controversial decisions, and he had a scandal where a couple of one of his donors' 2 sons got a COVID testing contract with him. It was a no-bid contract, and that blew up on him. And Lombardo ran a nearly perfect race and still barely won. So they did their job because they won all the congressional seats, and there's a near super majority in the legislature. But the state has changed. And
So you think that
this.
was the Harry Reid machine still at work?
I do.
That's what almost got
I think they
Sisolak
almost saved
over the line.
Sisolak. I believe it. And they did. They ended up winning both in 22 and 24, 2 very, very close Senate races. Jackie Rosen and Catherine Cortez Masto got reelected in very, very close races, and that was the Democratic machine.
And again, that's Harry Reid.
That's Harry Reid.
Yeah, sir.
Hello, my name's Andrew. I'm also from UT, the Plan 2 class that's here. Thank you so much for coming and answering our questions earlier, and it was really good to hear from you. This is a bit more general, but I was wondering, what would you say about sort of the impact of like algorithmic media consumption? Like, I think a lot of people don't appreciate how much a lot of sort of places people go for media, being social media, X, and all those places, there's sort of a kind of an algorithm that sort of decides what to give to different people. And so, I mean, how much of an impact do you think that has on sort of this kind of dichotomy where people can kind of go to the same source or website, I should say, and come up with 2 completely different sets of information on both sides? I mean, what role does that play?
I suspect we're aligned on this. Social media has been a cancer on democracy, period, right?
Yes, absolutely. Listen, Oh, I thought you were going to go first this time.
No,
Okay.
you're the guest. No,
so-
like, I wasn't raised by a wolf. You know, like you get to go first.
So listen, this is the greatest age of information in the history of mankind, and it's also the greatest age of bad, really bad and malicious information in the history of mankind. And this is only going to get worse. And I think it's pretty obvious why, but I'll say it. Anyhow, because of what is going on with AI, and it is going to, the kinds of things that are going to happen this election cycle, they're going to be much different than what happened in last election cycle. And even though a lot happened, there is going to be so much stuff that journalists are not vigilant about this kind of thing. It's going to do a lot of damage, and probably will. And I think people don't understand the impact that AI is going to have, not just in our business, but in everything. The amount of disruption that's going to occur. It was going like this, and it's about to go like this. Yeah. And it's going to be a real problem. These algorithms are real, and silos are real, which is the most disturbing thing to me. Is that people just can't get out of their own silos, their confirmation bias, the validation culture that exists. They don't want to listen to other points of view. They don't want to even consider that other points of view have any validity whatsoever. And that's why, and you used the right word, that's part of the reason social media has become a cancer in society, and it's affected our business too. And let me just end by saying, ironically, guess how most people get to the Nevada Independent site?
Through that social media. Well, I mean, it's kind of a terrible thing, but also we kind of need it, sort of. It's awful. I think the AI thing is exactly. I'm very concerned about AI in this. I think this is the first fully AI-enabled political campaign.
Yep.
In all kinds of ways that have the potential to be very dangerous.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, we're going to wrap there. Please give John Ralston a big hand. Thank you all very much for coming. We'll see you again soon. Good. Great work.